What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Aaron Nix from the Wrestle Plug podcast. I'm here to discuss AEW Dynamite, getting a lot of heat on social media. Why don't you cover Dynamite? Do you just love NXT? Short answer to that is yes. I much prefer NXT. But I did watch Dynamite this week. Now, I haven't watched Dynamite for a while. I'm not a huge fan of Kenny Omega, as everybody knows. I'm a shock horror, and obviously, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've got his t-shirt here. Like, I don't hate him. I'm just not a mega stan like a lot of these ridiculous AEW fans are, and vice versa. WWE has those fans too. So I thought I'd sit down and watch it. I thought I'd give it my honest assessment, and here's what I came up with. Now, the show opens with an 8-year-old kid. I understand it's Brody Lee's son, and I actually liked this segment. I thought it was funny, it was enjoyable. John Silver, gold. Along with Reynolds, of course. Silver and Reynolds, actually, really good tag team. Probably one of the more underrated tag teams, actually, AEW has. And when you consider the plethora of tag teams they have, that is quite impressive. Even though I enjoyed it, though, it still felt a little bit... This is why, even when AEW gives you something good, they've got to give you something shit as well. And this is why I kind of find myself frustrated with a product. I'll be honest with you, because that's what I do here. Luther and Serpentico. Boring, pointless. I know Luther has quite the reputation, deathmatch guy from Japan. I know he's Jericho's mate, he's been in his business a long time. That's all very well and good, and I'm sure back in the day he was fantastic, but he's just a fat, bald guy. I'm that too. You know? I don't dislike him in any way. It's just that he's got nothing to offer other than some dodgy face paint. Serpentico, you know, little guy with a mask, works reasonably well in the ring. There's 1,000 guys like that. There's nothing special whatsoever about what he does other than these weird jizz-like streamers that shoot out of his hands. It's just, it looks really tacky. They look like indie guys who have been thrust onto TV. Now, the difference, because obviously the argument I'm going to hear is, well, you know, Undisputed Era is full of indie guys and stuff like that. All of them technically can claim to be indie guys unless they've been brought up directly in the system. The difference is with the WWE system, and even places like Impact and stuff like that, they find places to elevate their talent. They don't just say, go out there, do what you do on an indie show, and that'll be good enough for TV. There's not enough proper entertainment value and proper wrestling value as well. NXT is so good at giving you a bit of both. You get the sports entertainment aspect, but you also get hard-hitting physical wrestling that you can believe. Wrestling that feels real. And AEW, I'm going to be bringing up a lot of comparisons, so if that upsets you, probably best to turn it off. But, you know, this is why, obviously, I prefer NXT. And obviously, I'm going to compare it because this is the competitor, so to speak. I don't really believe in brand loyalty. I just watch what I like. It's got nothing to do with me preferring NXT to AEW because WWE is my brand. I don't give a shit about that. I give a shit about good wrestling, good stars. I feel like NXT has all the good wrestlers in comparison, or the majority at least. But I enjoyed this opening segment. I thought it was really good fun. The match is kind of a bit of a throwaway, except for that so sick ending. Can I just say, Hangman Page is one of the few guys who feels like a star. I'm going to upset some people here. Hangman Page would be so much better in WWE. I mean, AEW just don't know what they're doing with him. I didn't like the Kenny Omega angle when he was with him as a tag team. I hate tag teams that are singles guys. The fact that you had Proud and Powerful and the Lucha Brothers and Butcher and a Blade and, you know, even, you know, the Young Bucks, who I'm not a big fan of either. When you put these guys at the head of your tag team division before them, that's pretty astonishing. Ultimately, you know, Hangman Page is fun. I enjoyed the little marriage thing at the end as well, but I just want to see a bit more. Now, switching gears, this show was all about botchy tag teams and botchy tag team matches. Private Party and Matt Hardy versus Matt Sydal and Top Flight. I've only seen Top Flight wrestle once before. Again, it's another interchangeable piece. Feels like two young guys who can flip around. That's great. Can you do more? Well, when they try to do more, they almost kill themselves. One of them, they're doing this ridiculous move, and I'm not going to harp on about it because there's botches everywhere. There is. Wrestling has botches. And, you know, AEW fans, or stans, as they like to think of themselves, they don't help the cause. They go on social media, have a little cry. Oh, stop going on about our wrestlers when they botch. We don't hear about that in, you know, you never hear about that in WWE NXT. That's because you're in a wind tunnel. You're in an echo chamber when it comes to Twitter. You're only hearing what you want to hear. That's what social media is all about. You're not going to follow a load of people who watch something that you don't like, are you? You know, for instance, I'm a Lincoln City fan. I'm not going to follow a shit ton of Grimsby fans, am I? Like, ultimately, I don't want the hate. For me, it just seems a little bit of a complete, it feels like you're pissing into the wind. It's an utterly pointless exercise. They're saying like, oh, same night Casey Catanzaro botches. Not nearly as bad. There's a difference. There are levels to this, and people need to have perspectives. This guy literally necked himself. He could have broken his neck. And for a move that was fucking pointless in the first place, why do you need that build up to it? Just stand there, do the moonsault. That's impressive enough. And that's the problem. That's why you get this kind of old man or old school purist mentality. Because, why would I want to watch a young kid land on his neck like that? It makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't want to see that. I want this kid to have a long career. You're not going to have a long career doing stuff like that. You're just not. And, even look at Jeff Hardy, for instance. The way he's had to adapt his style. Does he still take risks from time to time? Of course he does, but not on the crazy level he used to. And just because he used to do them and he got away with it, so to speak, doesn't mean it's okay. I can go out tomorrow, climb some telephone mast that's 30 feet high and swan dive into a tree or a bush or whatever. It doesn't mean it's a good idea. And if I get away with it, it doesn't mean that it's okay for everyone else to do it. And the other argument for me, of course, is because this match was throwaway. I don't care. Matt Hardy looked like trash as well, if I'm being honest. I love Matt Hardy, but he just looked a little bit off the pace. And he looked ridiculous because he's in the ring with 5 other guys who are crazy athletic high flyers. But it's so interchangeable. You could put so many different people in there, have the same match, and I would not know the difference. If you had said to me, if you grabbed 2 random high flyers from GCW or something and said, hey, here's Top Flight, I would have been, okay, cool, no idea, don't care. That's the biggest problem here. Yeah, it's all very well and good they can do a load of flips. Loads of guys can do loads of flips. How well can they entertain? How well can they talk? How well can they carry a storyline? I'm sorry, but those are the things that I measure wrestling on. Not, oh, I just did a triple Salchow flip into a moonsault. Great. The difference with Casey Catanzaro, for instance, and her botch, so to speak, that was the only crazy maneuver she did the whole match. It wasn't like 50 flips and then she did it as well. And that's the big problem here. Less is more a lot of the time. I don't need to see an army of them. And the fact that I don't even like the commentary team, but I agreed with them, JR shits all over this, and rightfully so. It's terrible. Who's the legal man? Does it even matter? It doesn't, because they don't really look at any rule. I don't want to watch a clusterfuck. I want some sort of balance. I want it to have a certain amount of logic to it and consistency, and it doesn't. The biggest problem for me is their women's division. I love women's wrestling. Now, we had Layla Hirsch versus Penelope Ford, okay? Now, on paper, that sounds good. And actually, I thought this match was quite good. I love Penelope Ford, not just because she's redonkulously hot, congratulations, Kip Sabian, but she's actually a legitimate athlete, good heavy hitter, former NWA women's champion, I believe. She's got a lot of credibility to her. And yeah, here we are with this match, and all we've got is this bullshit and fuckery going on outside. Orange Cassidy is fun when he belongs in the undercard. He's not a main eventer. He's not a star. And the fact that AEW fans think he's a draw is pathetic. He's not a draw. He's just not. Ultimately, if he was that much of a draw, you'd be selling twice the amount of pay-per-views. You're selling pay-per-views based on Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, who I'm not a fan of, but I can admit is a draw. Young Bucks, Orange Cassidy's very low down that pecking order, and ultimately the only time anyone really gave a shit is when he wrestled Chris Jericho, who's probably one of the biggest stars, and all in all, not particularly a good representation of that company now. This women's division is trash. I'm sorry. How anyone can honestly go on social media and say to me, oh yeah, I saw some AEW fans actually have the gall, the temerity to say that their women's division is on a par, if not better than NXT's. Are you fucking blind? Here, you can have these. Seriously, put these on. Put them on. See that? Blurry, right? Real blurry. You have terrible opinions. You really do. I just despair with it. And the thing is, they haven't addressed it. They haven't changed it. They're not listening. This is why I get fucked off with people saying that Tony Khan's amazing. Oh, Daddy, Tony Khan's so good. You realise Tony Khan loves himself some Donald Trump, right? You're all on your fucking social media acting like snowflakes, tweeting out about how much you hate Donald Trump, impeach Trump, Republicans are scum, I hate the right wing, I'm super liberal, I'm super all-inclusive. While this guy that you are basically making out to be a messiah, him and his dad gave an astonishing amount of money to the Trump administration. Google it, search it on whatever fact checks you need to do. It's there. It's plain to see. Same with Chris Jericho, but you all seem to want to idolise him as well. And ultimately, Chris Jericho has given a lot more to the wrestling business than this dweeb has ever done. It's sad. Their women's division is pathetic. It is poor. It is trash. And they have made it very clear that when it comes to main roster television, in particularly Dynamite, and pay-per-view as well, they do not care about women's wrestling. Where was the women's champion this week? Oh, surprise. Last time I watched it, she wasn't on either. What's the point of having a women's champion if they're not represented well? Your TNT champion had a 2-minute segment where he basically was in the ring with his old gothic dad, Sting. Don't get me wrong, I love Sting. Sting for me is the greatest all-time babyface. Do I want to see 61-year-old Sting tagging up with Darby Allin? No. And what's really funny is AEW fans, oh my god, what a draw, what an incredible match. Oh, right, but when Goldberg comes back on Raw, that shit, and don't get me wrong, I thought that was shit too. I don't want to see Goldberg. I even offered Goldberg out for a fight on a podcast previously. That's how fucking much it annoys me, even though I know he'll murder me. But ultimately, do I want to see 61-year-old Sting, who, for me, when I was young, was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and I still believe is the greatest all-time babyface? No. No, I don't want to see him wrestle. Much less in a street fight with guys like Darby Allin, who are going to be doing insane shit and coffin drops. Do we not learn the last time? He had a very simple match with Seth Rollins and almost died in WWE. And that was what? 3, 4, 5 years ago? Come on. 61 years old. Good for you, Sting, that you're getting a paycheck. But no, absolutely not. By the way, the lack of use of talent. Team Taz. You got Ricky Starks. You got Taz. You got Will Hobbs. None of them, Brian Cage, none of it, and also a child. No idea who that is. Is that someone's son that's just drifted into shot? I haven't seen this guy before. No idea who he is, but he looked well out of place. This is a random blonde kid standing with them. No fucking clue. None of these guys get any match time, any proper ring time, even to get, even to stand in the ring and cut a proper promo. Nah, just 30 seconds flippantly to set up a match of Revolution, which is still a month away. Great. And the biggest problem? Lance Archer versus Eddie Kingston. You have no idea how much of a big time match that is. Eddie Kingston is by far and away the best mic worker AEW has. It's not even fucking close. Like, he makes Kenny Omega look so shit by comparison when it comes to character, and actually his in-ring quality is so much better than Omega's as well. It's not about high flying, it's not about looking shiny, it's about making shit look real. Eddie Kingston looks like he can knock any man's head off. He's one of the best in the fucking world and has been for nearly 20 years. What does Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer get to build their match next week, which frankly should be a pay-per-view level match? Oh, 20 seconds backstage where they square up to each other, and that's it. That's all you gave these guys. Man, Tony Khan doesn't have a fucking clue. He doesn't. We got a 5-minute segment with the Young Bucks going to Kenny Omega's house and seeing a painting. That was funny. I enjoyed that for what it was. And if it was surrounded by good quality wrestling with sensical and clever storytelling, I would have enjoyed it. But it wasn't. That painting was, intentionally homoerotic, which is fine. That doesn't bother me. But the segment, whatever. Young Bucks obviously beat up Don Callis because later in the night we see him with a whopper bruise. Kenny Omega is fucking pointless. I don't get it. Look, I'm wearing this t-shirt to prove to you that I don't hate him, frankly. But I don't care about him in AEW. Why should I care? He comes in wearing a Flash shirt. Okay, great. He's wearing this fruity shirt. He can't talk very well on the mic. For my money, he feels really unrelatable and unbelievable, which is really funny because AEW fans ultimately, from what I can tell, the majority of them only watch AEW because they want to feel included. Oh, I feel like I'm part of a family. I don't watch wrestling because I want to be part of a family. I watch wrestling because I want to be detached from things. I don't watch the Marvel or DC cinematic universes because I want to see superheroes who are like me, a little bit portly, who go on runs every morning to try and keep the fucking weight off. I want to see proper superheroes. I want to see Iron Man. I want to see Captain America. I want to see Joker, a proper villain. I want to see Batman. I want to see vigilante heroes. Those kind of things. That's why people watched wrestling, because they're so larger than life. And a lot of these AEW characters are not larger than life. Fuck's sake, Miro. Think about all these incredible heavyweights. Brian Cage did nothing on this show. Miro is apparently walking around with Fuck Taylor as a butler. What the fuck is that? That's awful. That's bad. Rusev was one of the most unstoppable beasts you've ever seen in WWE. He drove a fucking tank into a fucking baseball/football stadium in front of 60, 70,000 people. And now here he is, pretending to play video games with his suspiciously metrosexual best mate. What the fuck is this? That's trash. That's not funny. That's not good. That's not entertaining. If you find it entertaining, great. Frankly, your standards must be so fucking low. This was a really poor show. Women's match was completely swarmed by the bullshit shenanigans going on the outside, showing how little they care. It's almost kind of like a joke now. It's a running joke. They deliberately want to wind up people who are fans of women's wrestling. It's pathetic. I feel sorry for the women who work there. They deserve better. They deserve a better environment to work in, aka Impact Wrestling, NXT, Stardom. There are plenty of places, not just WWE. There are loads of places that do women's wrestling well. AEW is one of the worst women's divisions in the world, if not the worst. And they have done nothing to try and improve it. And throwing up some fancy little bracket, some sort of tournament that you're apparently going to have, doesn't mean shit to me. It should not have taken a year and a half to work out whether you give a shit about women's wrestling or not. It should be at the forefront by now. Piss poor. Your best referee is a woman. Do better. Have a woman on your commentary team as well, because that commentary team, I've got news for all you stands out there, that commentary team sucks as well. And you can tell JR is there to collect a paycheck. You can tell he's not enjoying it. He's slagging off the product that he's supposed to defend and sell to you vehemently on the TV. He's slagging it off during the match. You know, he even said during that top flight match, does anyone even care? Does it even matter? No, it really doesn't, mate. Tony Schiavone is garbage. It's just some, you know, not only that, he's some salty little bitch who just basically goes after anyone on Twitter who says anything that might upset his feelings. I think Excalibur is actually a fantastic play-by-play guy, but he's so much better alongside Taz. The AEW announced team, it should be those two, and Chris Jericho should kind of have guest appearances, and that should be it. I'm sorry, but you must be paying. JR can be backstage. JR has an incredible mind for wrestling. I don't need to hear him dragging himself through a product that he clearly has no real interest in. He's not that passionate about it. He's passionate about wrestling, though. Put him backstage. Chew out these guys more often. You know what? It says a lot about their locker room and how arrogant they are that a lot of those indie-rific guys, they didn't like what JR said about them. Tough shit, mate. JR has probably got more wrestling knowledge in his left nutsack than guys like Brandon Cutler will ever, ever, ever contain in their entire being. Grow up. Even the main event. I love Chris Jericho for his career. Not really enjoying the person he is right now. It's just the way it is. I liked this match. It was good fun. But ultimately, who won? MJF and Chris Jericho beat Sammy Guevara and Jake Hager, who, to be fair, were really good and a real surprise to me as a tag team. I thought they were great. I'm not surprised by Sammy Guevara. He's so good. He really is. He's another guy who would do so much better in NXT. I'm just saying. Or even go into somewhere like Impact. Could be a huge, huge megastar. Just seems like they're dragging it on, taking forever. And because it takes so long, AEW fans have to be like, oh yeah, but this is great storytelling. No, it isn't. If it's great storytelling, get to the fucking point. Simple as that. And don't be coming at me in the comments saying, yeah, well, WWE storytelling. Trust me, I take their shit to task. Did you not watch our Raw review? I slaughtered that. You are not immune just because you are not run by Vince McMahon. So stop that fucking bullshit. This main event, Chris Jericho was the worst wrestler in the ring. He's past it. He looks out of shape. He looks like he's just having a good time at this point. He kind of looks like me when Lincoln got promoted those couple of seasons, and I was just basically off the rails, getting drunk, having a good time. But the difference is I'm not turning up to work as a professional wrestler. This guy is. And he is a legend, no question. And he is one of the most charismatic and entertaining men in the history of wrestling. But grow up, mate. Grow up. That's how it feels. I feel like saying to him, Chris Jericho, please grow up a bit. I love him dearly. It's sad to see it go the way it is. You know, I love it. I still sing along to his music. I love Judas. I love the Inner Circle. But the fact of the matter is, you have Proud and Powerful, one of the best wrestling tag teams of modern generation. I'll never have a bad word to say about those guys because they are incredible and they were fantastic in this match. And yet, they lost out to a bunch of singles guys. Where were the Lucha Brothers? Well, I mean, you saw Penta briefly getting beaten up backstage. Great. Even the Young Bucks weren't on this show. They were too busy fawning over a painting and then knocking out an old Canadian. FTR went on this show. All you got was a very brief backstage moment where Jungle Boy, who should be a megastar really, because he's so good looking, he's got such a great attitude, he's clearly a world-class wrestler. He is a fantastic babyface. He challenges, you know, either one of Revival, FTR to a match, which was great. And I would have taken it even more seriously if he didn't have a giant guy dressed as a dinosaur and a midget next to him. And I like Luchasaurus, but come on. He reminds me of Ty Dillinger. He reminds me of all these gimmick wrestlers. Yeah, it's fun for a little while, but you got to have depth. And ultimately, now we found, once we got out of the way, the kind of the shtick and the funny gimmick side of things, what else is there? Nothing. And that's the problem with AEW. Seems to be a lot of great moving parts, but not really much going on. Why is Cody Rhodes wrestling Peter Avalon? I like Peter Avalon. He's clearly not a main eventer. He's not even a decent mid-carder. Sorry, he's just not. Nobody's paying money to see Peter Avalon. And I like him. I think he's fun. But I'm not going to pay money to see him. Especially against Cody Rhodes, who's one of your biggest stars. And your other huge star, Jon Moxley, is wrestling the second coming of the Barbarian. I mean, the guy was huge. Great. Jon Moxley dispatches him, cuts a great promo. Jon Moxley gets 30 seconds to a minute on the mic to cut a promo. That's not good enough either. He's one of your best wrestlers. He's one of your best mic workers. Not personally my cup of tea, but I recognise that Jon Moxley draws for this company and does it well. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been champion for so long. But, again, way too many errors. Is this an anomaly? Is next week going to be better? Do you know what? I'll watch next week and I'll review that too. I want to know what you guys think, genuinely. I want to know why you think AEW is so special, because I don't think I'm making unfair points. I really think I'm making valid and genuinely objective observations of what I'm seeing. So I'm really curious to know what you guys think. Whether you're a WWE fan, AEW fan, doesn't matter. I'm very curious to know why you love it so much. Because for me, I don't give a toss about relatability. And I'm tired of people acting like Tony Khan is a wonderful human being just because he's not Vince McMahon. For me, he comes across as a bit of an arrogant little twerp. And also, he's an elitist billionaire. What's to be relatable about that? There's nothing relatable about that. If anything, he's just a nicer version of Vince McMahon. And Vince McMahon's a fucking bellend. So that's all I have to say about that. Hopefully you've enjoyed this review either way. Obviously, please check out our weekly State of Wrestling Address podcast, which is already up. You can check it out on YouTube. But if you check it out, if you download it via our audio podcast, wherever you get your podcast, search for WrestlePlug. If you download it via the audio stream, you get 20 minutes of exclusive, highly unfiltered content. And I know Nails is watching. I know Nails loves a swear, don't you? You fucking saucy beggar. But yeah, plenty of exclusive content over on that podcast, so check that out. But for myself, Aaron Nix, thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to catch you very soon for more content from the WrestlePlug.